How's it going, Knicks fans? Welcome back to another episode of Fireside Knicks. I'm your host, Dylan Becker, and I'm joined by my brother and co-host, Justin Becker. And we got regular season games to talk about now. The preseason is finally over. No more boring old preseason games. It's time for the regular season, and we're going to cover that. So, the first thing I do want to mention before we get into the game, some big news did come out today. The Knicks did not extend Immanuel Quickley. They were not able to reach an extension before that 6 p.m. deadline. Pretty significant news. That means now Quickley is going to officially hit the restricted free agent market next summer. So the Knicks will have some competition now if they want to keep Quickley for the long term. But before we jump into the game, I do want to ask you, Justin, what your quick thoughts are on the Quickley stuff, and then we'll jump into the game because obviously this whole Quickley contract stuff is now going to loom over throughout the entire season. So I really want to get your take on this. So go for it, my man.
Yeah, obviously, as you just mentioned, the Knicks were not able to extend Quickley today. They had until 6 p.m., I believe, and they were not able to reach an extension. I've kind of said all offseason and preseason that I didn't really expect an extension to happen. He wanted a lot of money. I didn't think the Knicks would give him a lot of money considering, they had paid Josh Hart. They paid RJ Barrett last summer. They paid Jalen Brunson last summer. I just didn't really see it happening, and then today I really didn't see it happening when I saw what Jaden McDaniels got of the Minnesota Timberwolves. I believe he got 5 years, $136 million. Once I saw that, I was like, okay, yeah, there's no chance that they reach an extension with Quickley because, this is a player that's on Quickley's tier, if not below Quickley's tier, and he got that much money. So, the market kind of got ruined with that. So I kind of expected this to happen. I don't think it's the worst thing in the world, though. The Knicks have a lot of good young guards on the roster with Brunson, DiVincenzo, even Miles McBride too, Quentin Grimes, so they have a lot of young guards already to kind of act as insurance if Quickley were to, seek opportunity elsewhere. Obviously, he's a restricted free agent, so he's not like completely gone. You can still bring him back if another team were to, give him an offer. But, the way I see it, I don't think the Knicks needed to overpay for him just yet. He had one season of sustained success, and he was really, kind of a no-show in the playoffs. I'm not saying the guy's trash. I think Quickley is very good, and I think he's a very important piece of this team. But he is the sixth man after all, and he's never going to get a starting opportunity as long as Jalen Brunson is around. So, the Knicks really have to consider the needs a little bit. They're kind of in a position where they need to prioritize, maybe eventually getting themselves in a position to get a superstar rather than paying their sixth man $100 million, because obviously we all love Quickley, but a couple years, let's say like 2 years down the road, a superstar becomes available and he gets traded somewhere else. Every Knicks fan is going to go, oh, why didn't we get him? Leon Rose sucks. Why didn't we get him? Well, it's because 2 years prior, we gave Quickley a lot of money. That's why we don't have space for that. So, you really have to look ahead when you consider things like that. Obviously, we love Quickley, but it kind of takes you out of the running for any superstar by making a move like that because we're already committed to Jalen Brunson, RJ Barrett, Julius Randle, and now Josh Hart. So, extending Quickley to a contract well over 9 figures essentially takes you out of the running for any superstar unless you deal them. So that's kind of my thoughts on it. I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. I think they'll be okay if Quickley were to walk. It's really kind of a matter of how this season plays out. If Quickley has a great season, maybe they do bring him back and they give him the money that he feels like he deserves. He's betting on himself basically at this point. So if he has another great season, maybe you do see him get like a 4-year, $120 million extension, something along those lines with the Knicks, So, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. So that's kind of my thoughts on it.
Yeah, no, I thought you made some good points, and the Knicks, the Knicks wanted to. It seemed like they wanted to give Quickley kind of a contract of 4 years, $80 to $85 million range, while Quickley wanted to go a little bit higher than that and get to the 100 million range, into that 9-figure tier, like you mentioned. So me personally, I'm kind of glad that, how to put this, I'm not glad that they didn't extend Quickley because I do like Quickley, but I'm glad they didn't jump the gun and overpay him. Because like you said, it was 1 year of sustained success. As we gotta realize this too. Quickley has had a lot of inconsistencies throughout his career. December to April of last season was consistency. That was the consistency we wanted. But then he had the drop off because he didn't do much in the playoffs. You know what I mean? We got to also remember too, prior to December, he almost got traded. The Knicks almost traded him because he was not playing very well. He was shooting very below average. His efficiency was down. His defense was fine, but scoring wise, he was honestly almost a liability. You know what I mean? So we got to realize that we don't want to pay someone off of, just a short period of success. We need to see more. And I think the Knicks did the right thing to not necessarily overpay him. Do I wish they got him extended? Yes, because I think Quickly is a great player. I think he, fits the timeline of the team. I think he fits many needs the team needs, such as shooting and defense and playmaking as well, because he's a solid playmaker for what it's worth. But I'm glad they didn't overpay him, and also because, like you said, it's not like he's going to be starting on the Knicks because Jalen Brunson is in the way of that, and that's not a bad thing because Jalen Brunson is obviously way better than Immanuel Quickly. But you get the point that I'm making here. Immanuel Quickly is not ever going to start over Jalen Brunson anytime soon. So I think they made the right decision. Now they will have competition in the offseason. So, they might need to, offer a little bit more money if Quickly feels like he's worth that. If he plays like it's worth that, they might have to offer that if they really want to keep him for the long term because now, like I just said, other teams are going to have the shot to go after him and he'll have the opportunity to go there. So they'll have some competition, but we'll just have to see how that plays out. Unfortunately, that whole situation is going to loom over now during the season about Quickly's contract, especially if he starts to struggle. You're going to hear it a lot about how that we didn't extend him, or if he does play well, you're going to hear it even more about how, oh, the Knicks didn't extend him. Why didn't they extend this guy? Now that he's going to go walk and go somewhere else. I really hope he doesn't walk, but the chances of that happening are a lot more likely now than they were just yesterday because now he will officially hit the restricted free agent market next summer. So we'll just have to see how that plays out. But moving on from that, we have a season to talk about now. The Knicks are going to open their season against the Boston Celtics on this Wednesday at 7 o'clock Eastern at Madison Square Garden. First game is going to be a tough one. They're playing against arguably the NBA's title favorite, if not at least the East favorite in the Boston Celtics. They just added Drew Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis in the offseason while still extending Jaylen Brown and, of course, keeping Jason Tatum, Derek White, all those other guys. They have a very well-rounded roster, arguably one of the most balanced and complete teams in the entire NBA. So we got to give them credit where it's due. It's going to be tough, but the Knicks will be at the Garden. They'll be at home. We know what other teams are like facing it when they had to go to the Garden. If we remember the famous Jared Allen quote from the last year's playoffs, that the lights were too bright for him. So the Garden has that intimidation factor. Maybe that'll play into it. The Knicks seem to always play pretty well at home. But like I said, it's going to be a tough one facing the number one team in the NBA on opening night. But if we know anything about Knicks opening night the last few years, lots of crazy things can happen. The last two times the Knicks have played on opening night, they've gone to overtime, at least one overtime. And 2 years ago, they went to double overtime against the Boston Celtics too at that. So I think we're going to be in for a really good game. Before I give my real more deeper analysis on the game, though, I want to pass it off to you, kind of let you open up with your thoughts on not just the matchup in general, but also some players to watch for and some matchups to watch for, those kind of things. So go for it.
Yeah, this obviously isn't going to be a very easy game. This is a test right off the bat, really, for the Knicks. This is kind of a test of where they are in the East, really. They're facing arguably the best team in the East, like you said. So I'm kind of happy that we are, seeing this kind of right away. So, somebody that I'm going to be watching for in this game is Julius Randle because he's coming off of ankle surgery in the offseason. Obviously, we saw a little bit of him in the preseason and whatnot, but I'm really curious to see if, he's healthy, how he's moving, if he's going to keep up the play that he had last year where he made an all NBA team. I'm really curious to see that. He's someone I'm going to be watching for a lot in this game, especially because, the defense is going to be keyed in on him and everything. So I'm really interested to see what he's going to do. And I'm also interested to see how they're going to play against the Celtics because there's a very good chance that the Knicks face the Celtics in the playoffs. So, if they match up well against the Celtics, I'll feel a lot better about this team moving forward. If they come out on Wednesday and they get blown out by 30, I'm going to go, the gap in the East is a lot further than we thought. You know what I mean? So I think this is a really good test for the Knicks. I think this will kind of tell us where the gap is in the East between the Knicks and the top dogs in the East, such as the Bucks and the Celtics. So that's kind of my thoughts on it. I'm going to pass it off to you now.
Yeah, no, somebody that I'm really interested in watching this game, Jalen Brunson, because Drew Holiday is going to be guarding him. And the last time that Jalen Brunson and Drew Holiday faced off, Jalen Brunson gave that man 44 on his head. Now, I'm really interested to see that matchup. I really think, Brunson has always held his own against good defenders. It seems like no defender really phases him too much. He always finds a way to get to his spot. Now, of course, Drew Holiday's now on the Celtics. He was on the Bucks. Of course, both teams are very good. They're arguably the 1-2 in the East. Not even arguably. They definitely are the 1-2 in the East at this point. They're pretty much clear of everybody else in the East. Now, I will say, Boston does have a more well-rounded roster and a younger roster than the Bucks. They have young guys like Tatum, Brown, and Derek White, of course, a solid defender as well himself. So I think it'll be interesting to see how the Celtics handle that matchup with Brunson. Let's say Brunson is just cooking Holiday early. If they switch it and put like Brown or even Tatum onto him, or even Derek White, we'll see what they do about that. That's a matchup I'm really interested to see, though. I'm really interested to see what Jalen Brunson does against Drew Holiday once again. I think Brunson's going to have a good game. I really do. I think opening night he'll have a very strong game. He had a bit of a quiet preseason, but to be fair, he didn't really play that much in the preseason because he played over the summer in the FIBA Cup. So I'm expecting a solid game from Brunson. Do I think Brunson is going to drop 44 again? No, I don't think I don't think he'll get that far into it, but I can see, a 24, 25 point game out of Brunson at least, at the very least. If he gets a little bit lower than that, I won't be surprised with that either, but I do think he'll be in for a good game. I think he'll have good efficiency. I think, he'll do just Jalen Brunson things. I think Julius Randle, like you said, is another good player to watch for the reasons you pretty much just said. So I'm not going to really repeat that. But another player I want to watch for is Mitchell Robinson. The problem that I'm worried about with Mitch in this game is that he usually struggles with guarding shooting centers. A good example of this is anytime the Knicks have played the Bulls and we're facing Nikola Vucevic, he usually lights us up for like 30 points and like 6 3-pointers because Mitchell Robinson struggles to guard perimeter shooters. And not only that, but Tom Thibodeau also likes to play his centers in drop coverage, so they don't even give him a chance to really guard the threes as much either. So, and I really just don't want to see Kristaps Porzingis light us up in the Garden. I really don't want to see that happen after, the awkward departure that he had from us a few years ago and all that stuff. Now Porzingis actually looks healthy, so I think I think Porzingis will unfortunately have a solid game for the Celtics in this one, for us at least. For his sake, of course, that's a good thing. But for the Knicks' sake, we don't want to see Porzingis go off in this one. We want to see Mitchell Robinson be able to hold it down on that front. I'm really honestly concerned about it just because Porzingis is obviously a very strong outside scoring center, and Mitch has notoriously not done good against that. So I'm really curious to see what happens. I also think it kind of takes away the paint defense a little bit just because you're forcing Mitch outside to guard the perimeter instead of guarding underneath the basket 24/7. Now you kind of got to hope that guys like Randall can hold their own down there and stuff like that, since they're probably going to try to keep Mitchell Robinson out of the paint for most of the time. I would imagine that that'll be part of the Celtics game plan. So we shall see what happens with that. I'm really interested to see. I hope Mitchell Robinson kind of steps up to the plate a little bit, improves the perimeter defense a little bit, kind of locks down Porzingis as best he can. I don't expect him to completely shut him down because, like I said, perimeter defense is not Mitchell Robinson's strength, but you don't want the guy to go off for 30 points on you just simply because, oh, I can't guard perimeter shooters, so I'm going to let someone else do it. No, Porzingis is 7'3". He'll just shoot right over anybody else. So Mitchell Robinson has to step up to the plate in this one for that one. Those are some guys that I'm really interested to watch in this one. I want to hear what you guys say about that, though, if you think there's anybody else to watch for, any other interesting storylines to watch for in this one, and all that kind of stuff. So go for it.
Yeah, I thought you made a really good point about Mitchell Robinson. He's always struggled with perimeter shooters really in his whole career. It's not really his game. He's always been a rim protector, stays under the basket. That's his game really. So, it's interesting to see how Porzingis is going to take advantage of this matchup. I really hope he doesn't go off for 30 points in the Garden because we're going to be seeing that all over social media. Oh, Porzingis in his return to Madison Square Garden goes off, da 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 da, whatever. So I really hope that Mitchell Robinson, like you said, steps up to the plate and takes on that matchup and holds Porzingis down, doesn't let Porzingis take over, So I'm really interested to see that, especially because Mitch looks really healthy this offseason. This preseason, he looked really healthy. So, if he's moving and he's really nimble and stuff like that, maybe he will take that extra step and provide some perimeter defense. I'm not asking him to, be clamps on the perimeter or anything, but if he can at least hold his own against some of these floor spacing bigs, that would be great for the Knicks. It's great for the team defense and all that. And another thing I'm going to be watching for in this game is how the bench unit plays, because, we're going to be seeing Josh Hart really running the backup four now. So that's something I'm going to be watching for in this game. It's going to really be our first look really at that full bench unit because we've been seeing Evan Fournier in the preseason. I don't expect Fournier to really even play in this opening day matchup. I don't expect it at all. So I'm anticipating that Josh Hart will be getting the bulk of the minutes at the backup four. No Jericho Sims in this game either. So I'm interested to see that. I feel like it'll be the first time I'm really getting a good look at the bench unit. I'm kind of interested to see how that will play out. Maybe RJ even gets some minutes at the backup four. So yeah, those are some things I'm going to be looking for.
Yeah, no, I think it's good that you highlighted the bench because it'll also be Dante DiVincenzo's official regular season debut with the New York Knicks. I think it'll be interesting to see how he plays as well. I don't know. I don't expect, DiVincenzo to go off or anything like that. I feel like in the preseason he had some good moments, but I feel like his efficiency was a little bit down than we're used to. I'm hoping he cleans it up as the season goes on. I'm not expecting anything massive from him though, because given that we're playing the Boston Celtics on opening night, I expect the starters to play close to 40 minutes, honestly, with the exception of like maybe Quentin Grimes will play less minutes than Josh Hart or even Quickley. Aside from that, I expect like Brunson, Barrett, Randall, those guys to play close to 40 minutes, and Mitch probably 30 minutes, and Hartenstein getting the other additional minutes and stuff like that. So I'm expecting to see a lot of starters in this one. I don't think the bench is going to see the court a whole lot, but when the bench is out there though, I am interested to see how they attack Boston's bench. You know what I mean? The Knicks have arguably the deepest bench in the entire NBA with Quickley, DiVincenzo, Hart, and Hartenstein back there. I think it's a very, very solid bench. You could argue that three of those guys could be starters on any other team, with the exception of Hartenstein, because I think we all know Hartenstein is pretty much, a solidified backup big. But the other three names that I mentioned, those guys were DiVincenzo was a starter in Golden State for half the season last year. Josh Hart was a starter in Portland before he got traded. Those guys have experience playing lots of minutes and being starter level players. So I think it's good that we have those guys at our disposal on the bench. I think that's what makes us really good as a team overall. Gives us depth, of course. I am interested to see how they play, though. I think we can see some solid performances from them. But like I said, me personally, I'm not expecting much out of the bench just because of who we're playing. Like I said, I think this is going to be all on the starters in this one. I think Tom Thibodeau is going to rely on the starters a lot in this one. We all know he is not afraid to play his guys all 48 minutes if he really wants to, no matter what game of the season it is. I will not be surprised if Brunson, Barrett, and Randall all play like 40 minutes, especially Brunson and Randall. I feel like those guys are going to play for at least 40 minutes or at least close to it, maybe 35 if you don't want me to 40. But I expect those guys to play a lot of minutes in this one. I'm expecting, them to see the floor almost 20. I'm expecting to see at least Brunson or Randall on the court like 95% of this game. I feel like there's going to be very, very little times in this game where neither of those guys are on the floor. You know what I mean? But those are some of my thoughts. I want to transition though into, a final score prediction for this one. Now, this is going to be tough because I really want to say that the Knicks are going to win because, we're Knicks fans. We talk about the Knicks in this one. I'm going to be a little bold here though. I think the Knicks drop this one. I think the Celtics are going to come away with this one. I think it's going to be a close game. I think the Celtics win this one 106 to 102. I think the Celtics are going to come away with this one. I think they're going to I feel like it'll be a close game throughout. It'll be a hard fight. I feel like the Celtics will go up big at some point and the Knicks will claw their way back in, but it just won't be enough. I'm afraid, I really don't want to be that pessimistic guy. I want to be realistic though. I really think the Knicks are going to drop this one, unfortunately. And that's not something that, of course, I want to say because I want the Knicks to start the season off on a high note. And I'm also really excited for this game. But looking at it from a realistic standpoint, the Boston Celtics are just too good of a team constructed right now, man. They got pretty much everything that they need to be addressed. They have good shooting, good defense. They're a well-balanced roster. They have a solid bench themselves. They have depth. They have size. They have all that stuff. Size might be the one thing that they're lacking in terms of depth, but you have Kristaps Porzingis who's looking healthy right now and could potentially play like an all-star. That's going to be a problem for the Knicks. And the Knicks have always struggled against guarding taller shooting centers and stuff like that, as I mentioned before. So for those reasons, I think the Knicks are going to unfortunately drop this game, but I do think it'll be a close game. I really do. And if the Knicks do pull away with a W, of course, we will be very happy, but I also won't be too surprised either because I do think the Knicks are a good team. Not saying that the Knicks are a bad team. I just think the Celtics are simply better than them. And I feel like we're unfortunately going to see that on opening night. But maybe that'll be a good thing. Maybe that'll, kind of motivate the Knicks to kind of change up some things a little bit, make themselves be a better team than the Boston Celtics are, be a better team than at least they should be. You know what I mean? Maybe it won't be so bad because if there's anything, you'd rather get off to a slow start, but then get hot at the right time than end the season on a bad note and continue that struggle like into the playoffs or anything like that. You want to enter if you get into the playoffs first, of course you want to make sure you get to the playoffs first. But once you do that, at that point, you just gotta ride the hot hand at that point. You know what I mean? So if they struggle, I'd rather it happen early in the season. Now, those kind of just my thoughts on the game. Maybe I sounded a little too pessimistic, but I'm just trying to be realistic as possible and not sound like a biased Knicks fan. Even though we are Knicks fans, I don't want to be too biased on it. I want to give realistic predictions on it. But I'm gonna pass it off to you, kind of let you give your prediction on this game.
Yeah, I actually disagree with you. I think the Knicks are going to make a statement here on opening night, and they're going to take this game from the Boston Celtics. I think the final score is going to be 111 to 104. I think this is going to be a close game throughout for 3 quarters. This is going to be back and forth battle. And in the fourth quarter, I think Jalen Brunson is going to take over and end up leading us to victory. He was one of the most clutch players in the NBA last year. Probably would have won Clutch Player of the Year if not for De'Aaron Fox. So, I think having that is a massive advantage. Obviously, we've handled the Celtics pretty well in the past. I believe we went 3-1 versus them last year. Obviously, this is a different version of the Celtics. This is arguably a better team than last year, but the Celtics have been a title contender for years, and we've honestly held our own against them. So I don't want to sit here and say that I think we're going to lose. I think they actually are going to win. I think it'll be, like I said, a close game throughout, and Jalen Brunson will ultimately take us to the promised land and will win us our first game of the season, and it will be a great start to the season.
Yeah, no, I don't think, I think if they win this game, if the Knicks do win this game, that won't necessarily surprise me. I do think, like you said, Jalen Brunson's one of the clutch players in the league. They've held their own against Boston. If I'm not mistaken, they won 3 out of the 4 games against the Celtics last season. So they've shown to kind of be able to hold their own against them, despite Boston clearly being a much better team on paper at least. But I don't know, man. The Celtics are just a really good team right now. Like you said, this is probably the best version that they've been in quite some time, really, probably since the Kyrie Irving time. So I really think that it's just going to be too much for the Knicks. I really do. Unfortunately, that's what I think. I think, though, like you said, I think Brunson's going to have a very good game still. I think we could see a solid game from Randall as well. But unfortunately, I can't see them winning this one. Like I won't be surprised if they win, but I really think the chances are not in the Knicks' favor right now. Even though they're at home and they're playing at MSG, I don't think it's in their favor. I would love to be proven wrong though, because I would love to see the Knicks start off the season 1-0, then 0-1. Now, before we do wrap this episode up, I want to do a season prediction real quick, since this is before opening night. This will be our only time you'll hear us give our season prediction, but we want to, project what they're going to finish at overall this season. We talked about opening night, we talked about what they're going to do. Now I want to get into the season as a whole real quickly. And I made a TikTok on our social pages about some bold predictions for the Knicks, and one of them was that the Knicks would be the 3rd seed and win over 50 games this season. I still think that's going to happen. I do think they're going to be the 3rd seed, win over 50 games. I could really see it happening. Now, can I definitively say, yeah, they're definitely going to make the 3rd seed? No, because, the 76ers and the Cleveland Cavaliers, teams like that, are going to be in the way. I do think we're better than the Miami Heat, and I do think we're better than the Cleveland Cavaliers, and maybe on the same level as the Philadelphia 76ers. I really think that they're better than the teams I just named, and be on the same level as Philadelphia. I think that's a good spot to put them at, and therefore I really do think the Knicks can find a way to get to the 3rd seed. I really do. Have a nice 3rd seed, get matched up with the 6th seed, who I personally could see it being any really. There's so many teams down in the Eastern Conference after our tier that could make that spot. I have really no idea who the Knicks can end up playing in the postseason in the first round if they make the 3rd seed. But overall, I do think they're going to have a successful season. I think they're going to be better than last season. I would be shocked if their record is worse than what it was last season, because while they did have a quiet offseason, I still think it was a positive offseason. You brought back Josh Hart for the long term. You signed Dante DiVincenzo. I think it's an upgrade, after, some people will disagree, saying, oh, but you let Obi Toppin go. DiVincenzo for Obi is an upgrade. It's an upgrade. It's unfortunate that Obi Toppin had to go, but I think it was the right thing they had to do. I do think the Knicks are a much better team. I think they're going to end up being really good this season. I really do. That's my. Oh yeah, and also for playoffs, I want to make sure I get to that. For playoffs, if they do make the postseason, I'm just basing it off of the fact that I think they will make the postseason here. I think they're going to make the Eastern Conference Finals. Maybe that sounds very, very bold, but and unfortunately, they'll have to play probably one of Boston or Milwaukee in the playoffs if they get there. But I don't know. I feel like the Knicks can make a run. I feel like they can make a run. I feel like this is the chance. If there was any year for them to make a run before adding a major superstar, this would be the year. Now, given that, maybe they need to add a superstar at the deadline. Maybe we see some movement in the market, and maybe the Knicks go after someone that suddenly becomes available. Who knows? Maybe there'll be a disgruntled star out there that suddenly says, "Hey, I want to get traded," and the Knicks come right in and swoop them in, and then they become even a much better team. I think the Knicks are well equipped right now as it is, but I think maybe they could make a move at the deadline and become even better and possibly be able to be more equipped to make a run for the Eastern Conference Finals. Now, I'll stop short of that because I don't think they're making the NBA Finals this year. I don't think they come out of the East. Unless Boston and Milwaukee get knocked out before the Eastern Conference Finals, I don't think the Knicks make it past that. I don't think the Knicks get to the NBA Finals this year. I don't think this is the time. I think maybe next year, if they add a superstar, then I'll say they're in finals contention. But right now, I don't think so. That's kind of just my season thoughts. I want to let you get your thoughts out, and then we'll wrap this up.
Yeah, your prediction is a little bit more optimistic than mine. I think the Knicks are going to go 48 and 34, and they're going to finish fourth in the East. It's not bad, but I don't think they're going to finish third in the East. Like you said, teams like the Cleveland Cavaliers and Philadelphia 76ers are still in the way. It's not Boston, Milwaukee, and then the Knicks. I don't think it's that at all. I think you still have to worry about Cleveland and Philadelphia, even despite the drama that's going on in Philadelphia with James Harden. They are still a very good team. So I think you still have to worry about those teams. As far as playoffs go, I don't think they're going to make the conference finals either. I think they're going to go out in round 2 to one of Boston or Milwaukee. If we have to see one of those two teams in the playoffs, they're going to beat us. That's just the way I see it. Unless the Knicks add a superstar at the deadline or midseason, like you said, I just don't see us winning a 7-game series against one of those two teams right now. Obviously, a lot can change throughout the season. If the Knicks are playing some great basketball throughout the season and it looks sustainable, then maybe I'll change my mind. But as of this very day, I just don't see us beating one of those two teams in the playoffs. And so, yeah, I think it's going to be pretty similar to last season, but I think it'll still be a step in the right direction. I don't think they will take a step backwards like they did in 2022 after they made the playoffs in 2021. I don't think they're taking a step backwards. I think they're still going to, be a playoff team, make steps in the right direction. I just don't see them advancing to conference finals or NBA finals status just yet. I don't think this is the year, like you said. So those are kind of my final thoughts on this season. So, yeah.
Right, and I just wanted to add one more thing too. I think what's really important is that, like I know I mentioned before that you really want to at least enter the playoffs on a hot hand, but you also do want to get off to a good start. Now, I know I said before that I'd rather them start off slow than end the season slow and continue that into the playoffs. But I also don't want to see them start 10 and 13 like they did last season because they kind of dug themselves that bit of a hole and then kind of just played 500 basketball up until they got Josh Hart, and then obviously things took off from there. I don't want to see that though. I want to see them be consistent all throughout the season, play winning basketball all 82 games, not fall into this pit hole of under 500 or 500 basketball and we're at the deadline and they're barely floating 500. I don't want to see that. I want them to be, well in the playoff mix at the deadline and well into the playoff mix at the start of the new calendar year. I really want that to happen this time. I do think it's going to happen, but that's what I really want to see. Those are just some things I need to emphasize before I wrap this up. But guys, we are really, really excited to cover the season this time. This is the first time that Justin is going to be with Fireside Knicks for a regular season. So this will be very, very exciting for him. He joined us after, in the off season. He didn't get to cover the playoffs with us, unfortunately, but hopefully this time around he does later, next year into the summer. So we're really hoping for that, but we're really excited to have him now for the regular season. We're excited to cover a regular season. No more off-season stuff. No more preseason, it's nonsense. Nah, it's regular season time now. Really excited to get you guys this. We're going to get you guys much more content than we did in the offseason. We know some things were kind of slow, but now we have a lot more to talk about. We got plenty of stuff to talk about now. Plenty of games, plenty of exciting things to talk about. So we're really excited for that. So with that being said, make sure you guys follow us on all of our platforms. We're on this YouTube page, of course, and we're also on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. We're also on Threads as well. We're not as active on Threads, but we want to try to be more active on there so we reach out to more of you guys. So make sure you can follow us on there as well. The audio versions of these podcasts will also be on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Make sure you give us a 5-star rating on those. You can follow our personal Twitters. They're above our heads. And, with that being said, man, we're really excited for this. Drop your score predictions in the comments below. Give us a season prediction as well if you would like to. We'd love to hear what you guys got to say about this. And we'll see you guys in the next episode of Fireside Knicks. Peace out.